There are many practices along this healing journey, and one of them is about being able to honor your needs and desires. But what does that really mean? And how do you do that when you really have no idea what it is that you need? Well, today I want to share with you a little practice to help you connect with that. Welcome, I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's first talk a little bit about why we are so disconnected, and then I want to share a little practice. So when you grow up as a child in a really chaotic or dysfunctional environment, and certainly if you experience trauma, you are taught that your needs don't matter. You are actually taught that by the things happening in your environment, things that are being done to you. You are taught that what you need doesn't matter. You're also taught indirectly then that to have needs is dangerous. You can end up being hurt emotionally, potentially physically. You often end up feeling rejected. So it becomes a part of survival to disconnect from having any sort of needs. And when you experience trauma, particularly interpersonal trauma, by the actions of somebody else that is doing something that is hurtful to you, even if you don't register it as hurtful or feel a betrayal from it, that person is telling you, showing you that what you need and even what you want doesn't matter, because they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think it's important to be able to recognize that you don't have to have that as a conscious thought for it to have a profound and lasting impact, not only on your sense of needs, but on your sense of self. Because when our needs are not met as children, it also teaches us that we are not worthy or deserving of having our needs met. So when I talk about how the impact of childhood trauma is far-reaching and it affects everything, this is part of what I mean by that. Because when you look at experiencing childhood trauma, you wouldn't necessarily jump to, I believe that I'm undeserving because my needs weren't met when this person did this to me. But it's all connected. And it's also what I mean by the meaning that we attach to it. And again, the things that we're not consciously thinking often impact us in a more or in a deeper way. So that's kind of why we are disconnected from our needs. It's not safe to have them. And if we acknowledge them, we end up feeling some level of pain. And usually it's pretty deep pain, again, even if we're not quite sure why. So if we are not able to learn as children what our needs are, if we're not able to really listen, whether it's our heart, our body, or our mind, to what we need or want, we're certainly not going to be able to do that naturally as we get older. So being able to practice connecting to what you need and what you want is an important part of this journey. I think it's a really important part, both bringing awareness to what you want and need, and then being able to do something to have those needs met, because in that process, you are, in a sense, rewiring your brain to believe something different, to believe what has always been true, because it has always been true. And it's something you have to practice over and over and over again. And even something like setting boundaries is a really important part of this. Because with a boundary, whatever kind of boundary it might be, you're acknowledging within yourself that something is not probably okay. You want it to be different. You need it to be different. And part of honoring that is then doing something to try to make it happen. So on this journey, doing things to help you connect with that is a really important practice to get into. And some days it's going to be easier than others. And you often are going to have to be really intentional about practicing because it's not going to be natural. What's going to be natural is to disregard any sort of need or desire. You're going to talk yourself out of it in some way. Again, even if not consciously. So part of what you can do is every day or every other day or a few times a week, however you want to do it, but be really intentional and set this time aside. And maybe even journal. I think it's a good way to help you really connect. And just ask yourself, what do I need right now? And there's a good chance you're not going to be able to come up with anything. If you do, great. But if you're struggling with that, you can just kind of take a few moments, close your eyes, and connect within. So what I mean by that is just notice what is present. Any thoughts, any feelings, any sensations. Do you feel any discomfort anywhere? How is your throat feeling? How is your belly feeling? Are you hungry? Do you need to go to the bathroom? What kinds of thoughts come into your mind? Are you missing somebody? Are you wishing something would happen? For your heart, are you feeling lonely and disconnected? Maybe you're feeling a sense of warmth because you had a lovely connection with somebody. Is there a longing for anything? A really important thing about being able to acknowledge wants and needs is recognizing that they don't have to be something that you can make happen. They also don't have to be something that seems like reasonable, whatever that might mean. It can be like you want to feel the freedom of floating on a cloud. Well, you're probably not ever going to be able to float on a cloud. But your desire for the feeling is what's important. You may want the freedom that comes from winning the lottery. There's a lot of other things that come with winning the lottery too, but let's just stick with this. You may want the freedom that comes with suddenly having more money than you know what to do with. Well, the likelihood of that happening is probably pretty small. But what you're really desiring, right, is the freedom that comes from that. The sense of ease maybe that would come to your life. And even if you don't know how to make that happen, it doesn't mean that it's not okay to have the need or the desire. And not being able to have a need or desire met, whether it's immediately or ever, also, this is important, does not mean that you're not deserving of having that need or desire met, because that's part of how we reinforce over time that we're undeserving or unworthy. If our needs or desires continue to not be met, we take that as proof that we are not worthy or deserving of having them met, which is not at all the reality under any circumstance. So when you connect within and you recognize what is present, are you cold? Are you warm? Are your legs feeling tired? Are you feeling sleepy? Is there something that you're desiring as you're sitting there reflecting? Do you wish that there was some nice soft music in the background, or maybe some energetic music? Do you wish that you had the time to read a book? Do you wish there was somebody there with you as you are connecting within? Again, it doesn't have to be something that you can make happen. And I know for a lot of people in our lives, we think, well, if I can't actually do it, then there's no sense in wanting it, or there's no sense in thinking about it if I can't make it happen. And I guess to some degree, in some circumstances, there may be some reality to that. But when it comes to healing, absolutely not. Being able to just honor the reality of what is present. So checking in with yourself and just noticing. I think one thing that is a little bit more tangible sometimes can be to do like a body scan and just notice what feels present in your body. Now, for a lot of people, you might be really disconnected from your body, and that could be really challenging. So again, all of this is about practicing, right? So just noticing, like start and notice, do you feel anything in this part of your body? Any sensation at all? Maybe you even just notice how you're holding your body, or if you're lying down, feeling the weight of your upper body resting on whatever it's resting on, like the weight of your head, just really connecting and doing a body scan, noticing what feels present. And for a lot of people, you're going to notice that there's tension in your body, that you're holding your body kind of in a constricted way. So if that's the case, maybe what you might need, what your body might need, is to release or relax. So you can take a deep breath and work to release that muscle. But even just noticing what is there, if something is feeling uncomfortable, being able to acknowledge that, even if you can't do anything to make yourself comfortable in that moment, just being able to acknowledge the presence of the discomfort is an important part of the practice. And over time, you build on those types of things. So what am I feeling in my body? Is there anything that my body needs? And I think oftentimes hydration, maybe nutrition, can be a big part of that for a lot of people. What does my heart want or need right now? And that can be a really hard one. It can bring up a lot of sadness and grief. But being able to recognize that maybe that grief needs to be expressed. Maybe that grief needs to be held and honored and acknowledged instead of pushed to the side. What does your mind need? Maybe it needs engagement, connection, conversation. Maybe it needs healthy distraction. Maybe it needs escape, a good movie or a book or music. There's no right or wrong. And remember, it doesn't have to be something that seems reasonable. It doesn't have to be something that you can meet at that particular time or potentially any particular time. It's just about acknowledging the existence of the desire or the need. And you might be wondering, what's the difference between a desire and a need? I think it's a good question. And I think you might get different answers from different people. I think for me, when I think about a need versus a desire, a need is something that is, whether it's our mind or our body, it is something that is kind of an imperative thing to have or experience as part of what can keep us healthy. So whether that's something that we feed or fuel our body with or our mind with, or something like connection, which does fuel us, and certainly our heart, also our mind, and it absolutely fuels our body as well. So in a sense, it's almost like a nutrient that we need, whether it's our mind, heart, or body, to help us live our best lives, to be able to believe that we deserve to have our needs met. A desire, now there's not a right or wrong here. It doesn't have to fit into either category. But for me, a desire might be something that isn't necessarily like a nutrient. And I want to be clear, when I'm saying nutrient, I'm not talking about like a nutrient from food specifically. Now that could be it, but I'm really talking more about kind of just our soul, right? Our heart, our mind, our body, like all of it, like just nourishing our being in a sense. Now a desire can also do that, like a warm or a hot bubble bath. That can absolutely be nourishing to our mind, our heart, and our body, right? But it also isn't necessarily something that we absolutely need in order to nourish our mind, our heart, or our body. So it can be something that we just desire. Like some people might really desire that hot bubble bath. Other people might think, what a waste of time. I don't want to do that, or I don't like baths. They might want, I don't know, a nice hike instead. Not right or wrong. People are just different. But for them, maybe that is what nourishes them. So that would be a desire. Nobody needs a nice hike. But how we have our needs met can be through some of those desires. And sometimes we can also just have a desire for something that is completely what might be considered frivolous. But again, if it's something that you desire, like, I don't know, floating on a cloud or whatever, it's not about having to have that desire met. Again, it's about acknowledging that that desire exists within you without dismissing it, without telling yourself it's stupid, or that you're being silly, or whatever it is that you're going to say to yourself. Just being able to acknowledge, like, yes, I want that. And that's okay, even if I never get to have it. Because it's not about that. It's about honoring it within yourself. Now, when it comes to desires, if you can have that desire met, then absolutely have that desire met. But I just don't want you to get hung up on the idea that if it can't be met, it means you shouldn't have it. Or that if it can't be met, that you're stupid or undeserving of having it met. I hope you can recognize the difference there. And I know sometimes it can be hard because we can be very all or nothing when it comes to this kind of thing. But part of healing and being able to honor ourselves just generally is being able to recognize those things in particular. So I hope that that makes sense. It's about just being able to acknowledge within yourselves that I have this desire, I have this need. Like, let's say, for example, you have to walk, I don't know, 5 miles for something, and you're just feeling completely exhausted and you really don't want to. And maybe your feet are hurting. You might not have a choice. You might have to walk those 5 miles. So what a lot of people will do is berate themselves for being tired or for their feet hurting, or they should have known better and they should have done this because they knew they were going to have to do this, right? So instead of doing all of that, being able to acknowledge, wow, I am really tired, or my feet are really hurting and I really don't want to do this right now. So you're not doing it from a place of what a lot of people would suggest is like feeling self-pity or dwelling on something. That's not at all how I would refer to that. It's not about like complaining about it. It's about acknowledging and honoring the reality of how you're feeling. If your feet are hurting, your body is crying out in pain for a reason, right? Whatever that reason might be. Your body is in pain. And not wanting to have to walk 5 miles when your body is in pain, I would argue is actually kind of a healthy realization to have, because it hurts. Why would you want to do something that hurts or is uncomfortable? So even just being able to acknowledge, I'm hurting right now and I really don't want to do this, but I know that I have to. You're still acknowledging what is present for you. You're acknowledging the need. And then when you get to your destination, because you've not been judgmental or berating yourself for how you're feeling, you're more likely to meet the need that you have when you arrive at your destination. So maybe putting your feet up, maybe getting in a hot bath, maybe even getting a foot massage, or maybe taking some Tylenol or something like that. You're more likely to take care of yourself if you approach that whole experience from a place of honoring the reality of what is present versus beating yourself up or being judgmental in some way. If you do that, you're likely going to get there and feel like crap, physically and emotionally, because you're likely going to be beating yourself up the whole way there. And then there's a good chance that you might do something that's self-sabotaging in some way. And it may be related to physically how you feel. It may be something else. But you're basically going to then reinforce that you're deserving of that pain that you're experiencing. I think probably most of you can relate to that. And it may not be physical pain. It might be emotional pain that you can relate to. But I know physical pain is something that often we can experience too, and then tell ourselves we deserve it because I should have done this or I should have done that. So, being able to recognize and honor our needs and desires is a significant part of the practice all along this healing journey. And you have to come back to it time and time again. It does get easier. It becomes much more natural. You kind of organically recognize what you need. I've shared before how there are times that I will notice, or my husband might point out, that I take a deep breath and I sigh. And that happens very organically for me now. And it used to be that I would just hold my breath and not breathe, or take very shallow breaths, until I recognized that I was doing that. And then I practiced doing things to help me take full, deep breaths, particularly if I was feeling stressed or if there was something not feeling comfortable in my body. I practiced it over and over and over again. And now, when I'm needing a little bit more oxygen, I naturally take a nice full deep breath. And I often do let it out with a sigh. But all that happens pretty organically now because of all the practice, the intentional practice that I've done. I'm much more likely now when something is feeling uncomfortable in my body, especially some sort of pain, instead of trying to just push through it and maybe even pushing harder because I shouldn't be feeling that pain because it's some sort of weakness or something like that, I can honor my body. I can put my feet up if I need to, or just have a desire to. The other day, I was working and I had been feeling kind of stressed out, and I don't remember what kind of initiated it right away or right in that moment, but I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go sit on the couch for a while and read. And that's very out of my kind of routine sort of thing. But I recognized that I was feeling kind of stressed, and I just gave myself, in a sense, that permission. But it started with awareness. Like, okay, I'm really feeling something here, and I'm going to do something to help my mind move away from all of that and just relax. And I moved to the sofa because I had been sitting at the table working. So I moved to the sofa because it's a little more comfortable and I could put my feet up. I didn't do it for very long, but long enough. I felt like it was enough. It was what I needed. I read, I don't know, a chapter or two in the book, and it felt really nourishing. And then I think I ended up doing something else after that. I didn't get right back to work. So it doesn't have to look any particular way. It certainly doesn't have to be something big or like life altering. It's just about connecting within and honoring what is present. And whatever you want or need has value, because you have value and you matter, even if that desire or need can never be met. I'd love to hear from you. What came up for you? Do you see yourself in pushing those needs and desires away? Do you tend to be pretty aware of what you want or need? I think it's something that most of us need to practice pretty regularly to really get into a habit of noticing that we even have them. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to do so and click the bell for notifications. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.